Janina, welcome to Everything Etc.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
That's good. How are you?
I'm good. We just had a lecture this morning,
Yeah.
which Shaman went to
Yeah, first lecture of this.
after the mid-sem, so that was good.
It was good, yes. Before we get started, tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Jenina. I'm 20 years old, which is the age Shaman thinks he's gonna... Life is over.
No, I just said I'd become an unk then.
Yep, unk status. I met Shaman through nursing.
Yes.
We do nursing together and we're in our second year. And I duetted Breaking Free with Shaman and we got 100.
Yeah, in karaoke.
Just letting you know.
Yeah, highlights. Unfortunately, we're not talking about karaoke today, but
No.
that would be a great topic. There's two big themes, Janina, I want to talk to you about. And obviously, as Janina said, she's studying Bachelor of Nursing, but you also write
I
in your
do.
spare time.
Not professionally, not seriously. It's all just very personal stuff.
But there's something beautiful about that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you've released an article recently, and you've titled it "Haunted by Homesickness: On the Intimacy of Being Understood, Ghosts of Hometowns, and Alternate Lives." Firstly, that's like a very, very beautiful title.
Thank you.
Where did this love for writing come from?
Um, I never really considered myself a writer. I didn't think I had like an affinity for it in high school, like in English, high school English. But I think it was around senior, like year 11 and 12 when I started kind of liking it. I always had I guess, hesitation for writing because English wasn't my first language, so I grew up in the Philippines
Well,
until
English
I
isn't
was...
your first language.
No,
Oh.
so I was born in Australia, but I grew up in the Philippines, and so English wasn't really the first that I kind of absorbed. And so having that like English as a second language background, throughout like my high school assignments and writings, I would be very like hesitant, and I'd be very critical of my writing until until high school. I started to like writing more, and then I didn't start writing consistently until this, I guess, this sort of kind of incident happened. It was after a heartbreak.
Yeah.
It was after something miserable in the Department of Love happened.
Yeah.
That's when I started writing, I guess, regularly and consistently, and not even like structured, very free flowing kind of journal style writing. So very just personal, like I wouldn't have anyone else read it. And so that's how I came to like writing. And I don't write regularly still. I don't consider myself a writer. But I like doing it in my spare time, and I definitely use it as like an outlet of my emotions.
I think what you're saying about the outlet of your emotions, it's very obvious in her article, which I will link if you want to read it. It's very, when I read it, it's very much fueled by like your emotion. Your writing is very, very emotion filled, which is one of the two topics I want to talk about today. So there's two themes I want to talk about today. First, inspired by our article, I wanted to talk about nostalgia and hypotheticals. Like, what does that mean to you? How you spoke about it in your article.
Yeah.
And next, I want to talk about your perspective in building relationships, because Janina has a lot of perspectives in building relationships, and we've talked about this a lot. So I think it's a really interesting topic to dive into.
Definitely.
So the article, specifically the Haunted by Homesickness article, why did you write it?
I've had that kind of idea or that lingering thought for a while now, actually. I don't know where it's come from. I don't know if it's just kind of growing up, being in your 20s, trying to find that sense of identity and trying to find something tangible to link your sense of identity with. And having grown up in the Philippines until a young age, so like still formative years of development, like growing up in the Philippines, I wanted to write about it because as often as I go on holiday there, like maybe every 3 to 4 years, it still doesn't feel the same, and it's still it's still very like contradictory, um, because I've lived in Australia for most of my life, and I still call the Philippines home. I would like always, whenever we would go on holidays there, I would consider it as returning home. And so it's that idea of never really like belonging in um, two spaces because just of that half identity. I'm sure a lot of people would feel that way, even having grown up here.
Yeah.
Um, that sense of belonging because it's just you just have like two homes to consider. And so yeah, that's been a lingering thought for a while. And when I was hanging out with my friend Sadie, shout out.
Hi, Sadie.
I told her I was gonna
Really?
be like the day you messaged me about it, I think I was hanging out with her and I was like,
No way.
yeah.
Sadie, I really hope you're listening to this right now.
Yeah, my good friend Sadie, who I've known for 2 years now. We get along on a lot of things, a lot of interests, lots of different hobbies and all that. But it's when she made this link between ghosts, or this song that we both really like by a Filipino band, which is the song I included in
Yes.
the article.
What's the song called again?
It's called Multo, and that literally translates to ghosts.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Did you talk
or
about
ghost.
that in your...
I do, yeah.
What does that mean?
It literally translates to ghost.
Yeah.
So a disembodied soul, or yeah, literally a ghost.
Okay,
and
that
that's
makes
the
sense,
whole
yeah.
premise of this song is they're talking about a past lover that comes back to haunt them like a ghost, or a past.
But in the case you're talking about in the article, like that lover is your feeling of home in
Yes,
Manila.
yeah. And so my friend Sadie made that link between ghosts and the haunting feeling of home, which we both feel very much. We both like miss, the Philippines, and we both miss home a lot. And when she made that link, I didn't have the idea of the article at that point in the conversation, but I knew, it. You know when you like a light bulb moment, you
Yeah.
get that kind of like neuronal link in your mind when you just have this idea. And so that's what was happening during our conversation. And I remember going home. It was really late at night as well. It was like 11 p.m. and I just had to get that idea down so I don't lose it.
So you wrote this at like really late at night?
Yeah, actually, the week of our biome exam.
Which the midterm one?
I would just take breaks in between studying to write it.
That's good though.
Yeah, as a sort of like brain break.
Yeah.
Because I know I just couldn't bang on like straight on study biome, and so I took that as a writing it as a break, and then I think I wrote it for maybe less than a week, because obviously when an idea has been lingering in your mind for a while, it needs a specific kind of stimulus to materialize. And luckily that conversation was like a stimulus for it.
From reading the article, you discuss a lot about your perspective of Manila and how it's everything that Brisbane is not to you, like the feeling, and the what ifs you have of if you would stay in Manila. When you discuss that, it sounds a lot like nostalgia. So what do you think nostalgia means to you?
I think nostalgia is what fuels a lot of my writing. I think I'm a very sentimental person, and so obviously when you write, it's all about the past. I don't think, well, you can write about something that's present, that's going on, but I think I write a lot about memories and what's contained in those memories. And so I think nostalgia for me, it's central to my writing. It's central to me, like it's central to my being as well, because I hold a lot of memories close to my heart. Even if they're negative, I still hold a lot of, what do you call it? Just hold a lot of heart for it, whether it's negative or positive. And so I think that's what nostalgia means.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes back to like the experience you've gone through, whether good or bad. They influence who you are, right? They influence your perception of different things. And,
Definitely.
and that's why I guess you feel nostalgia in the first place.
Yeah.
In your article, and as we do a lot too, we often look back on nostalgia with happiness, with, I don't know, like kind of a lens, like a red lens over it.
That's true, yeah.
Do you think looking back at nostalgia or trying to recreate nostalgia in our lives at the present time is healthy or unhealthy?
I think it's either healthy or unhealthy. I think it's on a spectrum. The extent to which you dwell on the past, I think you need to practice a bit of caution, because you don't want to be dwelling on the past a lot, because you're just gonna be removed and detached from the present. And that's something I like really want to practice as well, because like I said, as a sentimental, very nostalgic person, I tend to look back to the past in that regard. But I think where it's beneficial is when you look at it in an introspective way. So when you look inwards, so what did that specific memory, that specific past, how did that shape me as a person? What could I have done better? What were my wrongs? And so I think it's both. It's definitely a bit of both.
So it sounds like you're talking about reflection, using nostalgia to reflect. And
yeah, I would say so. Is only if the event or that specific memory, I guess, is worth reflecting on, because I mean, not every memory is worth like analyzing and dissecting, because you know, some things you just don't have.
Excuse me, sorry, thanks so hard to sneeze.
We need to include that. Some things. Oh my god, I lost my train of thought.
I'm so sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, not every moment is worth really analyzing or dissecting. Some things just happen for what they are, and I use nostalgia now. Before, I used to use it as sort of like a regret, like a coping mechanism for regret, and kind of making out the situation in the past to have been better. But yeah, I think practice with caution. Use nostalgia as, I think, more for positive kind of looking back, because when you use it to look at your past negatively, then it's like, again, you're just dwelling on the past, and you're dwelling on things that were out of your control.
Like you just said, you just take some things just happen because they happen. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are certain things that are out of your control. Maybe I'm viewing this from a relationship perspective.
No, go for it. all the perspectives are important to think about, right?
Say, like I said before, my writing consistently, maybe like 2 years ago, was fueled by heartbreak. And during that time, when I would reflect on the months that have been with that person, it's more in regret, and it's more in what could I have done better. But some things were just out of my control that that a human can't. They just can't, write it out, write the situation out. And so that, I guess, helped me forgive the situation as a whole and forgive the person as a whole, because I realized that even if I put my 100% in it, there was still other factors that I couldn't have changed, or I couldn't have done better. And yeah.
That's really interesting. So you're saying that you have nostalgia about these situations, but it's not all these situations. You're like using nostalgia to reflect on certain situations, how it made you feel, what you did, but some situations just happen because they happen. Like there's nothing you can do to change that.
Yeah.
I think that's like, as a perspective, that's, I guess you could say it's like an enlightening perspective, because a lot of people get caught up when something happens and they maybe not even reflect on it. They kind of harp on it and stick on it really long and they can't move past that. But looking at it and just accepting it happened, I think is a really powerful thing.
Definitely.
And that actually moves on to the second topic I want to talk about. Hypotheticals. You talk about the what ifs of what happened, and like right now you're talking about sometimes you just accept things as that they happen, but hypotheticals are like a really important part of just being a human, right? You always think, what if this happened and what if that happened? Like there's a quote that you say in the article, so I'm quoting you now. But you said, no matter how much we reconcile these parallel lives, the what ifs will remain infinite and the right nows will remain definite. What do you mean by that?
I think that line was inspired by the movies I've watched about kind of alternate lives. And when I say the movies, I mean two.
Which
if
movies?
If you've seen Everything Everywhere All at
Love
Once
that movie.
and Past Lives.
I haven't finished it. Is it really good?
Honestly, if you want to be... if you're not affected by, like, heartbreak, I would say I'd say finish it.
Yeah.
Because the ending... the ending is quite a ride.
I've heard it's an interesting ending.
It's an interesting but realistic ending. And this is what we like about La La Land, right?
Yeah, I love realistic endings. We talked about this last episode.
Very justified ending, I'd say. And so, those two movies, Past Lives and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think, tackles it more, the idea of alternate lives and the different lives one human could have led. But my favorite thing about that movie is that it has such a scientific premise, but at its core, it's like just about a relationship between a mother and a daughter. What do you mean by
scientific premise?
As in, like, you could get really caught up in, like, oh, how does she... What's the science behind her, like, time traveling or, like, space traveling between these different...
Well, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. And when I first watched the movie, that was what I thought of it. I just got confused with how it all happened, but it's less on the how and at its core, it's just a relationship between a mother and a daughter, and how in every life that the main character Evelyn could have lived, at the end of the day, she just wants to be with her daughter, she just wants to be with her family. And so Past Lives tackles it differently. It talks about it in a more realistic way. And realistic because the ending's very
because I know there's that one line from Everything Everywhere All at Once when Ki Hye Kwan,
the laundry and taxes one.
In another life I wouldn't have just laundry
exactly.
Like that I remember when that was the scene that made me want to watch that movie, because it changed my perspective on it. It's like I think we so often, I don't know if it's just me talking, because I'd like to think I'm sometimes too ambitious for my own good. And sometimes when you're ambitious or you have dreams, it's like, oh, I want to achieve this and I want to achieve this, that you forget that the small things hold so much meaning. You know, it's like that Ferris Bueller quote, you know, it's like life moves pretty fast, but if you don't stop and take a look once in a while, like it'll like go past you or something. Like he had like so much attachment or like want for the simple things, but like the other versions of him like wanted, like he was in awe of like him achieving like karate and stuff, right? Like those big dreams. I think you can break that down into like a personal perspective, I guess. It's like we're so caught up on achieving these big things, but in like 20 years, does it really matter? Like
I agree.
There's a question. Oh, you go.
I was saying, it's very significant because laundry taxes, they're very repetitive, very it's like routine, it's like a routine practice for everyone, like every human. And for him to have expressed his want to do that in every life with her, as repetitive as it is, means that his like love transcends, you know,
Right.
time and space and all these different lives.
I think it's a really beautiful
It is.
depiction of love.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if it's a lot of like comic book shows now talk about like the multiverse and there's like infinite possibilities and stuff, right? But some shows, I can't remember any lot of them, but they have like specific events that have to happen in each multiverse, right? I don't know, like One Division talks about it. They talk about the idea of like in the multiverse there's specific events that have to happen. But I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, you know when you meet someone and they're so fundamentally them, if there's like all these different possibilities and like in everything everywhere all at once, it's like the multiverse. Can they really change fundamentally? Or are they just a different person?
That's a really thought-provoking question.
Because like, I forgot his name in the movie. Kihei Kwan. Am I pronouncing the name right? I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
No, that's right.
But his character, it's like his love still
husband,
transcends.
Yeah. The
Like
husband.
his love still transcends. Like he still fundamentally has the same love for her as the main version of him does, right? Like that once. But is if you change that, does that change who you are? Like those what ifs that you're talking about, like the hypotheticals that you talk about in the article. If you didn't do them, like you're always like, what if I stayed in Manila? If you stayed in Manila, wouldn't you be a different person? Would you still be yourself?
I think, well, the idea of a human or like a person being shaped by their environment and their upbringing is very true. You know, the nature versus nurture debate. But I think the fact that the husband's love for Evelyn transcends time and space, there's kind of that, there's that fundamental part of him as a person where his love for Evelyn is unchanged. And I feel like that's with all humans. Maybe there's kind of like this innate characteristic in them that wouldn't change through the test of time or space. It might get it might be out of balance sometimes because of, you know, your environment, and it might be tested, but at the core, like inward, maybe it's something permanent, something that's
Definite?
Yeah, definite.
Is this what you're trying to get at with the what ifs are infinite, but the present, like the now, is definite? Is this like an interpretation of that?
Somewhat. I think with that line, with the what ifs will remain infinite and the right nows will remain definite. I was pertaining to how even if you live all these different lives, you will always seek an alternative one, a what if. Because, you know, even if I did stay in Manila, even if I grew up there and I'm there right now studying at a university there, in my mind there'll always be a what if. What if, you know, I moved to a different country, I grew up elsewhere, and I don't know where it comes from, but like the what ifs that humans always question is just always there. It's infinite.
You'll never get rid of the what if I did that.
Yeah.
Like what if I got the chocolates to the strawberries? I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the right nows will remain definite. I guess what you have right in front of you, your present life. You know, the path ahead of you could always change, but the right nows, it will just be as it is. You know, like us filming this podcast is
a definite right now. It's like
there's like a record of this.
Yeah. So you have you and hypothetical. I think that's really interesting. How we'll never like escape, I guess, the curse of hypotheticals, like the curses of what ifs. You personally, are you afraid you won't live your life to the fullest? Like you won't achieve those dreams of yours?
That's a deep question.
I know, sorry, we're going deep.
Sorry.
Exploring deep
if
topics.
If I'm afraid I'll ever succeed, I mean, in my current life?
Yeah.
No, there's no sense of fear because there's always choice. I think choice is also, like for us maybe, choices we're definitely like granted privileged with the choice with what to choose as a career path. And so I know I have a choice to mold that path to how I want it to be. But there's always going to be that lingering feeling of the what if. And I don't think that's a hindrance to me appreciating this current like life path at all. It's just there as a sort of comforting. I said this in the article as well. It's a form of consolation to imagine about these what ifs, because I think it's cool, like imagining different versions of yourself, you know?
Do you ever get caught up, you know, when you like imagine the version of yourself and like, wow, that one's so cool, or this one's doing this. Do you ever get caught up in like that imagination?
Past or like future? Future versions of myself.
Or even past, actually. Just like imagining yourself.
Because I consider myself kind of like a future. Like I'm scared of the future in a sense that I don't know if I'll be able to achieve everything that I want to. But I do get caught up with my past selves more, maybe, than my future selves.
Oh, so you're more maybe reflective
of
what you've done,
in a sense,
instead of afraid of the future.
Kind of. Are you the opposite?
I feel like, for me, it's like, I think if you break it down fundamentally, when I mess up or make a problem, or have a problem, in my head it's okay, it's happened, what do I do now? And then I think about all the options that I could do in the future. It's not really I'm thinking about what I could have done to change the past.
That's what I want to practice more. Like, I need
that's
to
interesting, right? Because there's positives to both.
There is. I'm not sure. Obviously, you know, every day you try to be the best version of yourself. And so while reflecting on the past versions, I guess I question, has my best version already come up? You know, like, has the part of me that was doing her best, it's already expired. Like, it was just for that limited amount of time.
No, I get that. Like, you think you've, I don't know, like, peaked.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know how people say you peak in high school?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, because I look back at myself in high school, and I'm like, bro, how did that guy do what he did? Because I was, like, knackered. Like, I had a lot going on in high school, and I still knackered through and, like, did really well. Yeah. And now I'm like, bro, one day I go through it, and I'm tired already.
Do you think it's the burnout?
It might be burnout, but I don't know. It's like, it's interesting. I don't think it's burnout. Maybe it is.
But yeah, in the same sense, not that I dwell on high school a lot, but yeah, I sort of reflect on the past like that, and we're human, so we're constantly changing, and so there's never really an expiration date or even a start date for the best version of yourself. I don't think so. You can always, you know, change for the better. And what was the question again? Did I go off on a tangent?
You talked about nostalgia and hypotheticals. Those are the two big concepts I wanted to talk about. And you mentioned that you think nostalgia is an interest, like it's something that you find maybe comfort in, but you reflect on it, but not all situations. Like, you're not finding nostalgia in all these situations. Some of them you just accept as happening. It's happened, and you don't really reflect on them or what you could have done different. But others you do, and then you have that feeling of nostalgia for not only good things, also bad things too. And then we talked about like hypotheticals and how we can get caught up in like those what ifs, right? And how sometimes, even though the what ifs are infinite and we'll never escape that, there's still definite features of like the present of who we are as people, and we need to choose to, like, I guess, embrace those as we tackle future problems. And I guess that comes back to nostalgia too, right? Because you got to reflect on what you've done, use it to fuel your future, but don't dwell in the past, right? So it's very complicated, honestly.
It is. I could talk about this.
Yeah, I've lost myself now. Jenina, you and I have talked a lot about, I guess, breaking down in relationships into structures, which maybe isn't a good thing to do. I don't know. Maybe you should trust your emotions more, but we've talked about it. And I wanted to discuss it here because I found your perspectives on it really, I guess, things I hadn't thought about before. We often, especially now, I feel like it's a big thing. I don't know if it was a big thing back when we weren't born, but now, going, like having a girlfriend, my friends dating too. We talk a lot about the phases of a relationship and the idealized, sometimes infamous honeymoon phase. That was a crazy laugh. What's your take on that? Do you think it's real?
First of all, I want to preface this by saying, like, take everything I'm saying after this with a grain of salt, because I've never been in a serious relationship before. I don't know if I'm the right person to consult or even talk about this, but...
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why it's called Everything, Etc. We're talking about every perspective, etc. There you go.
But the stages of a relationship, it's definitely a framework. I'm pretty sure it was based, I don't know, it's a scientific framework.
I don't know, I did some research about it online.
Oh, yeah?
And there's a lot of different concepts or theories about it. And they don't all necessarily include the honeymoon phase. So the 5 stages I found had the honeymoon phase as stage 1, then differences, then struggle, and then repair, and then enduring love. And you see relationships fail in like that struggle differences area. They don't reach the repair, which is where they fail, and they don't reach the enduring love. So for you, when you picture a relationship in these phases, well, how do you picture it?
I think a lot of relationships do follow that cycle, and again, it's a cycle. So, I mean, it has its stages, it has its steps, but it's not like a prescribed way of how a relationship runs, because you could jump from one stage to another. It's not always like linear. I mean, humans are flawed, which makes relationships even more flawed, and so there's no set linear way of how the stages run and work. But from my observation of long-lasting relationships, for example, my parents, I would definitely say there is truth to this 5 stages of relationship. Because I think the honeymoon phase also includes like the marriage, or the marriage comes between honeymoon phase and the differences. Is that correct?
I think so. It's like, usually the honeymoon phase is the first 6 months of a relationship. So it depends, and obviously it changes.
Oh yeah, there's like I think I read about it as well. It was like 6 months to 2 years. Or
something
even
like that.
Up until the couple get married, they're still in their honeymoon phase, and that's why a lot of, I think, divorces happen during or at the start of the differences stage, when they can't reconcile the differences.
I guess it comes down to, actually, I might as well ask you over here. Do you think love is unconditional or conditional? As someone on like who's thought about it a lot, and I feel like you have informed perspectives. Give the game set marks, like.
Wait, is love conditional or unconditional?
Yeah, what do you think? I feel like I ask this to every guest on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a running theme.
Yeah, it is.
I have never thought about describing love as conditional or unconditional.
It's just love.
I think if we were to use those words to describe it, I think the idea of love is unconditional, but the act of it becomes conditional. So when it's, in theory, it's unconditional, but when it's put in practice, it could be conditional. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. We were talking about it last episode, it's like the sphere, and the inside of, if you haven't listened to the last episode, go listen to it. What are you doing? But first summary for you, those of you that haven't.
No, literally listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about it as a sphere. In the middle is unconditional love, and it's like the base of a relationship. And then the conditions of a relationship are like layers around a clear sphere. But obviously, as you add layers of glass around a clear sphere, like a clear glass ball, the glass becomes more foggy. So the more clear the ball is showing how, I guess, strong your relationship is. But the more layers of conditions you add on, the more foggy it becomes, the more like not as strong your relationship could be.
The more conditional it becomes?
The more conditional, yeah.
Okay.
But I guess most of the people I've talked to this about agree that the base should be conditional, and I guess it's what I'm sorry, unconditional. And I guess that's what you're saying now. Like the idea of love should be unconditional,
as in the foundation of
Yeah.
it, you'd say. Because with that analogy, it makes me think that both can exist, can coexist.
I think so too. Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive, so you can have unconditional and conditional love at the same time.
Jenina, we were talking about this, I think last year. We were at the Red Room. I was doing magic tricks.
Yeah.
And you started talking about attachment types, which you had a really solid understanding of. For people who don't know what that is, can you explain it to them? Or explain it to me again?
In its simple terms, it's attachment types or attachment theory describes your relationship, the way you form relationships with people based on the way relationships were formed in your childhood, so during the developmental stages. So I think it's it's an evolutionary framework as well. It's a psychological and evolutionary framework. And again, with these sort of labels, I think it's good to practice caution. I think there was a huge kind of attachment type trend or thing going on TikTok, and that's how I found out about it. My TikTok PhD in
Obviously, we're not professionals or anything, so don't take any of this as
PhD in
fact.
TikTok attachment types. But that's where I found out about the idea and concept, and as timely as it was also during the time when I was, I don't know what you call it, in a situation, I guess. When I was talking to someone, and it provided a sense of validation and comfort to me, because it explained the way I would, build that relationship with a person, with how I'm a fearful avoidant, so that.
Well, okay, what does that mean?
That's one of the attachment types.
Okay.
There's 4. Oh my gosh, I went off on a tangent. But there's 4 attachment types. First one is secure. The second one is anxious. Third one is dismissive avoidant. And the fourth one is fearful avoidant. And with a secure attachment type, obviously, the fear of rejection isn't really there. You have a very secure bond or relationship with that person. And then moving on to the anxious avoidant, I think that's when you have a fear of rejection. There's 4 attachment types. One is secure, one is anxious, one is dismissive avoidant, and one is fearful avoidant. And the only positive one is the secure one, where it describes how you have healthy boundaries with people. There's mutual trust and support between you and the person, and there's controlled conflict resolution. Whereas the rest, anxious, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant, they're all negative.
But obviously, it's not a bad thing to have those attachment types. I guess it's kind of like a learning process, right?
Yeah, and like the definition of attachment theory, it's uncontrolled in the sense that as a child you grew up with this sort of relationship style. It's between your primary caregiver or your mother and yourself, and so that's not something you could consciously prevent yourself from learning when you're a child, and so that's how it shapes you. And I'm pretty sure you can take a test online, not to promote a test, but that's how I found out that I was fearful avoidant. But so a fearful avoidant is when someone has a fear of rejection, they have a hard time trusting and relying on their partner, and they have a low self-esteem. Wow, that's that's really attacking me.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you have those things, right? Yeah.
On a spectrum, I think.
I think for people listening who it's their first time hearing about attachment styles, I found it as a really good reflection tool. Something to think about: what can you change? How can you be better?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing wrong with the way you feel attached. It's all based upon trauma, right? And you can't do anything about trauma, like you're just saying. But it's interesting to break these really complicated concepts that I guess that with your friends you'd be like, damn, this is too hard. I can't do this. I can't do that. I don't know what I'm doing. To simple terms, so that you can create a plan to be better. But do you think it's healthy to get too caught up in like these attachment styles, these phases of relationships, or should we rely more on our emotions?
I don't think so. There's definitely danger to attaching yourself to these concepts too much. Same with, like the personality test, like the MBTI. It's a good form of validation to kind of know where you're at, but it's also dangerous to be so reliant on that and to prescribe yourself as that label as a person, because people change and you have the choice to unlearn all your past experiences and your trauma. And so I think it should be a balance between validating yourself with these kinds of labels, but also, like you said, with emotions. Or like trusting your emotions.
Should we... People are often termed as emotional or logical. There's like two types of different things.
Yeah.
Do you think it's dangerous? Because it sounds like what you're saying is you should have a balance of both. But like I have friends now who are in relationships, and some of them are very, very logical. They're like, this happened, I think this will happen, or they've done this, I think I should act this way. But others are very emotional. They're like, I've met this person, I think we're set. Like, I'm gonna be with them for the rest of my life. I guess it comes down to honeymoon phases again, your perceptions of problems. But there's a clear difference between those who logically think and those who emotionally think. And personally, I think I'm more of an emotional thinker. Like when something's going on, I'm like, I want to do it, and I'll just make a choice before I logically think about it. Do you think the difference between those is like something we as people should consider and try and balance, I guess?
Definitely, especially between like you and your partner, because in understanding that your partner thinks more emotionally or thinks more logically, you kind of give them the grace when I guess something bad happens and you think you want them to act a certain way, but that's not how they are because they're either emotional or they're more logical. And so I don't think it's something that you could really like fundamentally change as well, because I'm also more of an emotional person. I used to think I was like more pragmatic, like more logical about things, but I think I'm more driven by my emotions. And I guess it's just understanding, like not even in a relationship, even in friendships, like platonic relationships, it's that sense of understanding each other and how each other acts, how like each person acts to I guess not give up on that person, like, oh, because you're acting this way, we're already not compatible. Like an emotional and a logical person can be compatible still, if they just decide to, I guess, work around how their thought process
And I guess
works.
it's a journey, right? So I guess in introducing these concepts of like the phases of a relationship and these attachment styles, they're good reflection tools, I guess you could say, to benefit one's relationship. And I guess it comes down to what we were talking about before too, like the hypotheticals, like and nostalgia, how we reflect on that to benefit our actions in the future. This can also apply to relationships, and I guess that's seen in like these relationship types and attachment styles, and figuring out what you are. Like I think it's a really good tool to figure out.
I think so too.
Yeah, when you introduced it to me, I was like, oh, that's really interesting, and I spent a lot of time like pondering about it because
That's
it's like
really
an interesting
cool.
concept. Yeah.
So you like did your research?
Yeah, after you told me, I was like, oh yeah.
Did you take the test?
Pardon? No, I didn't. I was too scared.
I don't want to be prescribed as an anxious avoider.
Yep, can't let it happen. No, but I did the MBTI.
Yeah, MBTI.
And I remember I got the same one as Robert Downey Jr. and Spider-Man. So my ego was like, bam.
No, that's something. Yeah.
Straight through the roof.
I think my one is the same as Nelson Mandela.
No, I'm Nelson Mandela. That's great. There's a quote in the article that you wrote, and I want to touch on this as like the last big thing we talk about. You said, and during our conversations, when our ideas match, when our thoughts link, we sit there like two atoms in a solid state. vibrating and convulsing but staying in fixed positions. It's a satisfying chemical reaction, seeing past the surface of what each other is saying and tapping into their psyche, the heart of each other's emotions. First, I think that's really well said. It's a great analogy. This type of, I guess it's like a stage a conversation can get to, like the type of attachment you have in someone with a relationship. How do you describe that feeling other than that analogy?
I think in its
No, you go for it, sorry.
In its simplest terms, to not like reread everything that I wrote, I wanted to express the idea that to be loved is to be understood, or to be loved is to be known, because I think every human has a desire to be understood, because we're all are different people, and especially when you grow up and when you form your own identity, it gets like a little lonelier, because you're not molded by the same experiences like in school anymore, and so
I guess you feel kind of lonely, right?
it does, in a sense, and you seek understanding from the people around you, and I really go by that quote, or the idea of that to be loved is to be understood, because for everything that you are, they just understand you, and they just know you, like in the most simplest gesture, maybe they know you like flowers and they get you flowers, that sort of thing. And so that's what I wanted to talk about in that quote.
That's an interesting,
I
thought it was a great way of saying it, just how I never really thought about it before, but the way you explained it is like, I guess, looking beyond someone's exterior and reading them for the person they are, or the person they truly are, not the person they try to perceive. Because so often we put on masks and we try to be different people than we want to be. And I guess sometimes it works, because you eventually become the person you want to be, but other times it's like the person wants to be understood, like you're saying, and people have to look deeper.
And I feel like the only way to really, go past the surface level of someone is through conversation. And that's why I really enjoy this whole setup right now, because as much as it is like a film podcast, it's like a record of, conversations between people and getting to know them beyond, I guess, the surface level. And that's what I also found out with my friend Sadie. Like, that whole afternoon we just talked and talked and talked, and when you really spend time, you just sit down and talk to someone, you really get to know a lot about them, and not in the sense where they just tell you a retell of events. It's more, how did that situation make me feel, and how has it shaped me now?
Like, you get to understand them. That's, I think, especially nowadays, it's so, I'm a victim to this. I meet heaps of people and I'm like, bam, 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 and I don't really get to talk to them and get to understand them. Like, even to my friends now, it's like, I don't see them as often. It's hard to get that really close connection. And you can, I guess what you're saying is to be loved is to be understood. You don't get that feeling of understanding vice versa to either person. And I guess you can kind of feel lonely. So I think what you're saying about really getting to understand these people is via conversation is true. It's something we should all endear to do more.
It's hard though. I mean, everyone is so busy. We're all just in this we're all in a rush.
I hate that feeling. I hate when everything's in a rush.
We're just running and running and running.
It's hard. I actually hate it. I don't like everything being in a rush.
Slow living.
Yeah, I think slow living is the way. You can become more like, I don't know, content with everything.
Of course, yeah.
Everything is more meaning when it's slow.
And I notice when I'm taking things slow, and I'm not saying I take things slow all the time, I'm also a victim to the whole trying to get ahead, trying to run and trying to rush. When I try to live more slowly, I notice a lot more things, as in the minuscule, as in mundane, minor things. And living slow is an ideal that I want to achieve.
Yeah, I want to achieve that too. Actually, thinking about that, Lightning McQueen Trust the analogy, guys. In Cars 1, he's moving fast. He is speed. There's a whole opening sequence of like, I'm speed. You know? He's fast, but then he meets Maida. And you could argue Maida lives his life slow. He's caught up on like, oh, the fence and like the cows in the field. And Lightning McQueen builds or adds substance to his life. He finds meaning by meeting Maida. Do you think that's like Lightning McQueen is living fast, Maida is living slow? Or am I reaching there?
No, that's actually a really great analogy. I never knew Cars had like a philosophical...
I don't know, I just got that from now. Because, I mean, the whole movie's about going fast, right? But
Yeah.
is it really? Is it really about going fast? Or is it about slowing
Taking
down?
things slow, you know.
Talking to people.
Yeah.
He meets Sally. He gets to know Maida. And he kind of gets a meaning of why he does what he does.
I love that. We should all be Lightning McQueen. Oh, we should all be Maida?
I don't know, be post-Maida Lightning McQueen.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Because
to me.
I guess he's kind of arrogant. He's like, I gotta get there, want to win. Because he wants fame. He meets Maida. And he gets
Do
a
you
friend.
have a Maida in your life?
Oh, do I have... Yeah, I reckon my sister's my Maida.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. It's,
That's really sweet.
Yeah, or Spider-Man. Janina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you
But
so much.
as you know, we have a tradition on the podcast with our mascot, you could say, Pip. He's a little duck. Pip's gone through a lot in his life, and you, as I've already guessed, is going to make his life either way worse or way better.
I have control over the trajectory
Yes.
of Pip's life.
Our last guest left 3 sentences about Pip. He said Pip obviously had an ex-girlfriend who cheated on him at a strip club. Go listen to the other episodes of the full story. But Pip's also in the Duck Air Force. And he's on holiday now because he's trained really hard for a year. And he's gone on holiday to this really nice place. When he gets there, he sees his ex-girlfriend with her new boyfriend. And although he thought he could get past those feelings, he can't. He's so caught up about these feelings, and he uses his Duck Air Force skills to fly an F-1 fighter jet and bomb the hotel that his ex-girlfriend and new boyfriend are staying at. So now his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend die in that explosion, but also all the innocent
They're
people,
dead.
they're dead, in the explosion are dead too. So now Pip is on a beach, relaxing, happy now because he's got revenge on his ex-girlfriend, and he's relaxing with his best friend, Iceman.
Iceman.
Yes.
So it's a guy.
Yes, also guy. What's Pip's next move as a wanted murderer?
So Pip is on the beach.
Pip is on the
currently.
beach. He's just chilling right now, but I guess he just killed heaps of people, which kind of, that's not good.
Yeah, okay, so Pip, while chilling on the beach, you know, with his full beach attire,
What, duck beach botcha.
sees something appear out of the water, and it's the ex-girlfriend and the boyfriend resurrected.
Do you have one more sentence? Oh,
That's it. Pip
they're
just
resurrected.
witnesses the ex-girlfriend and the boyfriend, who wasn't meant to survive in the explosion.
Wait, are they like villains now? Like they're coming for Pip?
The next person can decide that.
Wow, okay.
It could either be, you know, like a godlike image of them, like, you know, casting
Jeez.
nice things on Pip
Well, okay.
and the friend, but Pip's ex-girlfriend and the boyfriend have resurrected, and they're approaching Pip from the water.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen,
Sure.
Pip was a wanted murderer because he blew up the hotel, but now his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend are alive. They've been
Yup.
resurrected. Oh my! Tune in next week to see what happens. Listen to the podcast just for that if you have to. But come on, that's a banging story.
I'm seated for whoever's gonna
Yeah.
take charge of.
They better have a good story. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Janina, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
We explored some really interesting topics today. Really, really big topics, and I think that it's really good for us and the viewers to reflect on it. Of what we
I
talked
hope you
about.
guys got something out of that.
I'm sure they did. For everyone listening, please go and listen. Not listen. For everyone listening, please go and read Janina's article that she wrote. It's amazing, very well written. Go and check it out. I'll link it in the description of the episode.
Thank you in advance for reading, because it's something very personal to me, and so thank you.
Go support her. She deserves the support.
Oh,
Thank you so much for coming,
Shaman.
Janina. Don't forget to follow and like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Awesome. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time when everything is set up. Wait, run it back. Ready? We'll see you next time when everything is set up.